Think you know the whole story? Turns out you were probably taught the half-truth. Welcome to Half-Truths. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture yourself back in a classroom. The slow tick of the clock on the wall, the scent of chalk dust and floor polish, the drone of a teacher's voice. You're probably doodling in the margins of your notebook, your mind a million miles away. And then, the teacher says something that cuts through the haze, a phrase you'll hear repeated in movies, on TV shows, and in motivational seminars for the rest of your life. They say, the average person only uses 10% of their brain. Imagine what you could accomplish if you could unlock the other 90%. And just like that, a universe of possibility opens up. You're no longer just a kid staring out a window. You're a superhero in waiting. You could learn any language, master any instrument, maybe even move objects with your mind. The idea is intoxicating. It suggests that inside each of us lies a dormant genius, a secret well of cognitive power just waiting to be tapped. It's the foundational premise of blockbuster films like Limitless and Lucy, where a simple pill or a cosmic accident turns an ordinary person into a god. That single sentence, "We only use 10% of our brains," became one of the most powerful and persistent facts of modern culture. Now, let's step out of the classroom and onto the playground. You're with your friends, happily chewing a big wad of bright pink bubblegum. You're laughing, you trip, and in a moment of surprise, you swallow it. A wave of panic washes over you. An older kid, with all the wisdom and authority of a 10-year-old, leans in and says, "Oh, you're in for it now. That's going to stay in your stomach for 7 years. 7 years. It sounds like a prison sentence. You imagine that sticky, rubbery lump just sitting inside you, a permanent resident of your digestive tract, until you're practically a teenager. These two ideas, one born in the classroom and the other on the playground, become part of our internal encyclopedia of how the world works. One is a promise of limitless potential, the other a terrifying warning. They are fundamental truths about the very bodies we live in. But what if that story isn't the whole story? What if our brains are working much harder than we give them credit for, and our stomachs are far more efficient than we fear? Today, we're dissecting two of the most enduring biological half-truths we're ever told: the myth of the 10% brain and the legend of the 7-year gum. Let's start with the big one, the myth that launched 1,000 self-help books. The story we all know about our brains is beautifully simple. It frames the human mind as a vast, unexplored continent. 90% of it is dark, mysterious, and unused. The remaining 10% is the small, lit-up territory where all our thoughts, actions, and memories reside. Everything we are, everything we've ever done, is crammed into this tiny sliver of our cognitive capacity. This idea is incredibly seductive because it reframes our limitations as opportunities. Struggling with a math problem, you just need to unlock another 5%. Can't seem to learn a new language? Your brain's language center is just lying dormant. The myth transforms failure from a personal shortcoming into a simple matter of untapped resources. It's not that you can't, it's that you just haven't yet. Pop culture has taken this concept and run with it, creating a whole genre of fiction based on the idea of unlocking the brain. Bradley Cooper in Limitless becomes a financial wizard and political mastermind overnight. Scarlett Johansson in Lucy evolves into a being who can control matter and time. The appeal is obvious. It's a get-rich-quick scheme for the soul. It suggests a shortcut to genius, enlightenment, and power. Why put in the hard work of studying and practicing when you could just, in theory, flip a switch and access the other 90%? This myth flatters us. It tells us we are all secretly brilliant, that our potential is nearly infinite, and that our current state is just a pale shadow of what we could be. It's a comforting, ego-boosting narrative that explains our mediocrity while promising greatness. It's the ultimate biological lottery ticket. And then there's the gum. The story we know here is less about potential and more about peril. The myth is simple and visceral. Chewing gum, we're told, is made of rubber. Our stomachs, which can dissolve a tough piece of steak, are no match for this synthetic material. So if you swallow it, it just stays. It evades the entire digestive process, stubbornly lodging itself somewhere in your intestines for 7 long years. The image is potent. A little pink fossil inside you, a constant reminder of a single, careless mistake. This story works because it taps into a primal childhood fear of the unknown, especially the unknown of our own bodies. As a kid, your body is a mysterious machine. You don't understand how it works, only that there are rules. Don't swallow seeds, or a watermelon will grow in your stomach. Don't swallow gum, or it will be there for 7 years. The rule is memorable because the punishment is so specific and so long. 7 years is an eternity to a child. It feels scientific, precise, and therefore terrifyingly real. It's a piece of folklore passed down from parent to child, from older sibling to younger. A cautionary tale that serves a very practical purpose. It stops kids from habitually swallowing something that isn't food. Its persistence lies in its simplicity and its effectiveness as a tool of parental control. So we have 2 powerful myths. One tells us we are underachieving gods. The other tells us our bodies are fragile prisons for our mistakes. But it's time to start pulling the thread. Let's start with the brain. Where did this magical 10% number even come from? If you ask most people, they'll say, "Oh, Albert Einstein said it. It's the perfect attribution. If the smartest man in modern history said it, it must be true." The only problem? There is absolutely no record of Albert Einstein ever saying or writing anything of the sort. It's a classic case of misattribution, lending authority to an idea by attaching it to a famous name. So if not Einstein, then who? The origins are a bit murky, a trail of misinterpretations and clever marketing. The seed of the idea can be traced back to the American psychologist William James in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. James, a brilliant thinker, once wrote that the average person rarely achieves more than a small portion of their potential. He wrote, "We are making use of only a small part of our possible mental and physical resources." Notice his language, possible resources. This was a philosophical and psychological observation about human potential, a call to strive for more. It was a metaphor. It was never meant as a literal neuroscientific measurement. But a good metaphor is often too tempting to leave alone. In the 1920s and 30s, neurosurgeons like Wilder Penfield were mapping the human brain. They would use electrodes to stimulate different parts of the brain of patients during surgery and observe the effects. They found that stimulating certain areas caused a muscle to twitch or a memory to surface. But they also found large areas, particularly in the frontal and parietal lobes, that they called the silent cortex. When stimulated, these areas produced no obvious response. From this, some people drew a massive, incorrect conclusion. If these parts of the brain are silent, they must be unused. This scientific misunderstanding collided with the booming self-help movement. In the preface to his 1936 mega bestseller, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie misquoted William James, writing that the average person develops only 10% of his latent mental ability. Carnegie, a master salesman, knew a good hook when he saw one. He took a philosophical metaphor, attached a specific, scientific-sounding number to it, and presented it as fact. The 10% myth was born not from a neurological lab, but from the world of advertising and motivational speaking. It wasn't science, it was a slogan. Now, let's pull the thread on the chewing gum. The origin of this myth is much less academic. You won't find it in a misquoted scientific paper or a self-help book. Its roots are in folklore. It's an old wives' tale, a piece of wisdom passed down through generations. To find its origin, you just have to ask a simple question. What is the point of the story? The point is to prevent a specific behavior. Parents need a simple, effective way to tell their children not to swallow gum. Think about the logic. Don't swallow gum because it's not food is a bit abstract for a 5-year-old, but don't swallow gum or it will be stuck in you for 7 years is concrete, scary, and unforgettable. The number 7 is key. It's biblical, it's mystical, and it's long enough to be intimidating, but not so long as to be unbelievable to a child. It's a brilliant piece of folk psychology. The myth likely arose organically. As parents everywhere searched for a way to enforce this simple rule, there was no single source, no patient zero of the gum myth. It was simply a story so good at its job that it spread like wildfire across playgrounds and dinner tables around the world. It's a lie told for a good reason, a half-truth designed to protect. But that doesn't make it true. And that brings us to the real story. The beautiful, complex, and far more interesting truth about how our bodies actually work. Let's go back to the brain. The idea that 90% of it is just sitting there, like an empty attic, waiting to be filled, is biologically absurd. The brain is the most energy-intensive organ in the body. It accounts for only about 2% of our body weight, but it consumes a whopping 20% of our oxygen and calories. From an evolutionary perspective, it would be a colossal waste of resources to develop and maintain an organ that was 90% useless. Evolution is brutally efficient. It doesn't build mansions with hundreds of empty rooms. Modern brain imaging technology has completely and utterly debunked the 10% myth. Technologies like functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, and positron emission tomography, PET scans, allow scientists to watch the brain in action. And what they see is a beehive of activity. These scans show that over the course of a single day, virtually every single part of the brain is used. Even when you are sleeping, your brain is firing on all cylinders, consolidating memories, clearing out toxins, and running the complex machinery of your body. There are no silent or unused areas. The key is that we don't use every part of our brain at the same time. Think of it like an orchestra. When the orchestra plays a symphony, not every instrument plays every note. The violins might play a passage, then the brass section comes in, then the woodwinds. But over the course of the performance, every musician is essential. The brain works the same way. When you're reading this, the parts of your brain responsible for vision, language processing, and comprehension are highly active. When you walk to the kitchen, your motor cortex and cerebellum light up. The different regions work in concert, passing the baton back and forth. The so-called silent cortex that early researchers found, we now know those are the association areas, crucial for integrating sensory information, performing abstract thinking, and producing language. They are the conductors of the orchestra, and they are anything but silent. Furthermore, brain damage is a tragic but powerful refutation of the myth. If 90% of our brain was unused, then damage to most areas should have no effect. But we know that's not true. A stroke or injury affecting even a tiny pea-sized portion of the brain can cause catastrophic loss of function, from paralysis to the inability to speak or recognize faces. Every square inch of our brain is precious real estate, meticulously assigned a critical task. The truth is, you're not using 10% of your brain right now. You're using 100% of it. The genius isn't locked away. It's already running the show. And what about that piece of gum supposedly setting up camp in your digestive system? Let's trace its journey. When you swallow gum, your body immediately gets to work. The first thing to understand is what chewing gum is actually made of. The flavorings, sweeteners, and softeners are all organic materials that your body can easily break down and absorb. Just like any other food, your saliva starts the process, and the acids and enzymes in your stomach quickly dissolve these components. But the main ingredient is the gum base itself. In the old days, this was chicle, a natural latex from a tree. Today, it's typically a synthetic polymer, a type of rubber. And it's true that your body cannot digest this gum base. Your digestive enzymes, which are designed to break down proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, have no effect on it. But here's the crucial part. Indigestible does not mean immovable. Our digestive system deals with indigestible material all the time. Think about dietary fiber, the tough parts of fruits, vegetables, and grains. Think about a swallowed corn kernel or a sesame seed. Your body can't break them down, so what does it do? It simply passes them through. Your entire digestive tract, from your esophagus to your intestines, is a muscular tube. It moves things along through a process of rhythmic contractions called peristalsis. It's like a biological conveyor belt. The indigestible gum base gets caught up in this process and is pushed along with everything else you've eaten. It mixes with other waste products and continues its journey south. There's no special side pocket in your stomach where it can get stuck. There are no sticky walls in your intestines for it to cling to. Within a day or two, just like that corn kernel or piece of spinach, it will exit your body through a normal bowel movement. The 7-year journey is a work of pure fiction. The actual journey takes about 48 hours. Now, there is a tiny kernel of truth that gives the myth its power. It is possible, though incredibly rare, for a very large mass of swallowed gum to cause a blockage or a bezoar in the digestive tract of a very small child. But we're talking about extreme cases, a child swallowing multiple pieces of gum every single day for a long period. For the average person who accidentally swallows a single piece of gum, the danger is essentially zero. The biggest risk from gum isn't swallowing it, it's choking on it. The story of the 7-year gum is a myth, a scary story told to kids that dramatically overstates the case. Your body is a remarkably resilient and efficient disposal system. So we've journeyed from a vision of a brain with limitless, untapped power to the reality of a fully engaged, hard-working organ. We've gone from a terrifying image of a 7-year intestinal resident to the mundane truth of a highly effective digestive system. The myths we started with were simple, dramatic, and easy to remember. The truth is more complex, more nuanced, and frankly, more impressive. The 10% brain myth persists because it offers us an easy excuse and an even easier hope. It tells a story of hidden potential, a shortcut to greatness that absolves us of the hard work required for real growth. The 7-year gum myth persists because it's a fantastically effective parenting tool, a harmless lie that enforces a sensible rule. Both myths reveal something fundamental about us. We are drawn to simple narratives that explain the world, especially when those narratives make us feel better about our own limitations or make our lives easier. Correcting these half-truths matters. It matters because understanding how our bodies actually work is empowering. The real story of the brain isn't about a hidden 90%. It's about the breathtaking complexity of the 100% you already have. It's a story of neuroplasticity, the brain's incredible ability to rewire itself, to learn and adapt throughout your entire life. That is a far more profound and hopeful truth than any myth about a magic switch. The real story of your digestive system isn't one of fragility, but of remarkable resilience, a system that can process what it needs and discard what it doesn't with quiet efficiency. The truth doesn't offer a shortcut to becoming a superhero, but it reveals the superhero machinery that is already operating inside you every second of every day. The most extraordinary thing about our bodies isn't some hidden potential waiting to be unlocked, but the remarkable, complex reality that's been working perfectly all along. Now you know the real story. What other half-truths are still out there? If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a comment, and join us next time. Until then, stay curious.